everybody. Top of the Saturday morning to you. Welcome to the Sweat, a program we bring you here on DraftKings Network and VSiN every Saturday and Sunday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. It is damn good to have you here. I am Emerson Lotzi. It's damn good to have you here, Steve Buchanan, in your quarters up. Looking fine on this Saturday morning.
Thank you.
Jules in his vomit green DraftKings hoodie. Joining us virtually today throughout the show. This is your flu game, Julian, and the romance level is at an all-time high with the fireplace burning behind you. Thank you for being here.
Just trying to set the mood.
Yes, you are.
Wow.
I'm going to need you to set the mood for us in college basketball coming up. We have tons coming up in this show, everybody. UFC 299 preview as they are in Miami tonight. Matt Brown will be here with his top picks. We're going to mix in some Mike Tyson, Jake Paul chatter as well. We're marching along throughout the month of March because it's March, talking best bets on the final weekend of the college hoops regular season, plus U.S.-Canada diplomacy on the ice here. We have ourselves a major international incident.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
How do you feel about that Tyson and Jake Paul fight? Because I feel like
I love it.
Unless Tyson is actually going to absolutely annihilate, do you want to tarnish your legacy like this?
So, and we'll talk about it with Matt Brown.
Well, I'm not on that segment, so that's why
I know that, but Matt Brown will be joining us. We'll talk about it because a lot comes down to, is it going to be more of an exhibition or is it going to be an official sanctioned event? Now, even if it's an exhibition, we've seen bouts like this before where guys go out there and try to absolutely murder each other, but then we've seen other bouts before where clearly the guys are in it for the money and they're not out to actually murder each other. But Mike Tyson, I bet he goes out there and absolutely knocks Paul's head off. That's what a majority of people want.
Because that's how I feel. Because did you see him actually doing
Dude, yeah. Did you see him in The Hangover? Knock Allen over?
Okay, but I'm talking about actual warm-ups. He actually looks legit still.
Yeah.
Now, is he going to be able to go a couple more than a few rounds? All of a sudden, I'm a boxing analyst. He's going to be able to go more than a few rounds. I doubt it. But if he's throwing like he was in that training video, then might be.
I can't wait. Listen, we all know he's a fan favorite. His reputation has rebounded for sure. And there's something that tells me he's going to go out there and take this thing extremely seriously. Jake Paul, while collecting a fat check, needs to also be very cautious of pissing this dude off leading up to the July bout. Let's start here with some warm-up bets. Let's start working up a sweat here. It's the way we like to start the sweat every Saturday and Sunday morning here on the Sweat. Steve, would you like to tee us off here?
Yeah, so, now that I'm a boxing expert, I should give it. No, I'm just kidding.
I was let's go, baby.
So I'm just going to continue with some baseball plays, some futures that you can do here. And there is one team that I'm really going to be focusing on that I think is going to be the worst team in Major League Baseball. And it is not the Oakland Athletics. People are automatically...
Okay, it's the Red Sox.
They'll be there too. But people are automatically jumping on the Athletics. Oh, this is going to be the worst team in the year. I actually think they're going to be better than the 50-win team that they were last year. Now, not a high bar to clear by any means. But the worst team in the league, get a crayon and write this down, is going to be the Colorado Rockies.
Woo!
This team is absolutely abysmal. I was looking at what they have on their roster and everything. I was looking who the general manager is, and I want to know why he hates his team so much, and that's Bill Schmidt. But one play that I like here, we'll talk about, worst team in the league's least wins tomorrow. But one play I want to focus on here is longest losing streak in Major League Baseball. Rockies are at 4-1 odds in this one. Their starting rotation is Kyle Freeland, Cal Quantrill, Austin Gomber, Ryan Feltner, Dakota Hudson. Recognize any of those names? I don't blame you because there is nobody on that team. But here is what really is concerning if you're a Rockies fan, which I apologize for. This team has 0 strikeout upside. The highest K9 amongst all those pitchers last year was 7.8, and that was with Ryan Feltner. The rest of the rotation had a K9 last year in the 5s. In the 5s. That means this entire rotation is going to be relying upon contact to get outs. Remember, they're playing 81 games in Coors Field during this season here. The power in that lineup, non-existent. There might be 2 guys in that lineup this upcoming season that can hit over 20 home runs, and that's Nolan Jones and Ryan McMahon, if that comes to fruition. They have no speed on this team either. So it's not like if they get on base, they're going to be advancing to second and whatnot. This team has nothing. Absolutely nothing. So we'll talk about them having the least amount of wins tomorrow. We'll talk about them today having the longest losing streak in Major League Baseball. You get that at 4-1. They have the second best odds for overall losing streak at 9.5 games, only behind the Athletics at 10.5. But I'm taking here the Rockies 4-1, longest losing streak during the regular season.
Rocky Mountain High, more like Rocky Mountain Low. Am I right?
Just go.
I just did it. Jules, cook us up a warm-up bet, please, or maybe a storyline you're keeping an eye on. Take it in whatever direction you want, man. We're just happy you're here.
Thank you, Emerson. And team totals for the road team against the Rockies is what I'm hearing from Steve.
Yeah.
We're going to the hardwood. Last regular season Saturday of the college basketball season. So this is the final big slate. Obviously, a lot of good games ahead of us, but after this, it's going to be a weekend of conference tournament finals and then the opening weekend of March Madness, which is awesome. Plenty of games, but none of these 150-plus game slates that we've been having. So this is the final one. A lot of teams battling for position, a lot of teams trying to get that resume right before Selection Sunday, regardless of what they will or won't do in their conference tournaments. So plenty of games to bet on as usual. If you follow my stuff this season, I've been betting a large portion of home teams. This is a Saturday where I like more road teams than usual, I would say. Richmond in the A10 goes to George Mason. They're in a really good spot. We got a big game between Kentucky and Tennessee, a rematch. Tennessee went to Lexington and beat Kentucky. Kentucky's getting a lot of points going on the road today in a week where Tennessee just went on the road, won 2 road games, and secured the SEC 1 seed. Could be a little bit of a letdown spot for them. Iowa State's been one of the best road teams in the country all year. They're going to Kansas State, who's been really good at home, but overall not that good of a team. And the nightcap, UNC Duke. I was ready to maybe take some Duke money line, maybe lay 2.5 with Duke. This thing's up to 5.5, and I think UNC is the overall better team. I know they got the first one at home. It's a revenge spot for Duke, but getting 5.5 with the Tar Heels seems like an inflation. So we've been talking about this all year, betting these spots and these home teams and how you're paying a little bit of a premium. Well, on the final day of the regular season, I think that's blown out of control a little bit. It's the last day that we're going to get home court advantages and be able to get value, whether it be on the home or road team, have these numbers being set with home court advantages. And I think there are some serious inflated numbers on some home teams. So I'll be going a little contrarian for myself today and taking more road teams than usual in college hoops.
Ah, interesting. We will be marching along, by the way, not once but twice coming up in this show. You'll rip through a lot more college basketball games ahead in this program. You know what I'm warming up to? I'm warming up to the fact of
hopefully not the Chiefs passing on a receiver in the
Listen, Bucko, when I gave out that warm-up bet, was that last week or the week before?
I've never seen a take die as quickly as yours did.
It was last week, and then a day later, receivers just went nuts at the combine, and the Chiefs were like, yeah, we got to have one of these guys.
Yeah, they're looking at that dude who just ran like a 4.240. And again, in my defense, I said, don't listen to me. So that's where I protect myself. But right now, I would say, listen to me a little bit. Hopefully, Tiger Woods is listening right now. He's not going to play in next week's players here, guys. After initially suggesting, a possible appearance in one of the tour's flagship events, further fueling doubt here about his future. He's played in 8 events in 3 years. I'm bringing my nephew to his first PGA Tour event next Wednesday.
Wow.
Listen to me. It's going to be a practice round. He was very excited to see Tiger Woods, but now my nephew's life is now ruined, and so is mine. Big Cat, I love you. We needed you. Since returning to professional golf after his car wreck, he has withdrawn or missed a cut in 4 of his 6 starts. His 2 finishes, listen to me here, were a tie for 45th at the 2023 Genesis Invitational, solo 47th at the 2022 Masters. The only thing I would ever consider betting now, moving forward with Tiger Woods, is for him to make the cut at Augusta. Now, those odds aren't currently available on the DK Sportsbook. The reason for that is this.
Great bet.
Now it's going, no.
That's going to be plus money. That's going to be big plus money.
Exactly, Jules. And you know why it's going to be important to him is because he is one cut made away from setting the record for consecutive cuts made at Augusta, currently tied with Gary Player and Fred Couples. Listen, Augusta is his home away from home. I wouldn't bet this guy to win a tournament the rest of his life. But for him to make the cut at Augusta, when those odds do come out, hop on them early. It's going to mean something to him. He may not finish the tournament, just like last year when he made the cut for the 23rd consecutive time when he suited up at the Masters. But he'll at least make it to rounds 1 and 2. I'm a little nervous he's not going to look great because he's not necessarily going to have a big warm-up event leading into Augusta now that he's not going to play the players. But guys, he's going to make the cut. He's going to make the cut at Augusta next month, a month from now, almost a month from this weekend here, dudes. Okay.
So this guy ruined your nephew's life, and now you're betting on him to do well.
Well, exactly, because we're all about helping people here and helping them make money, which is why you shouldn't bet the Chiefs to take a wide receiver in the first round as well. All right, thank me later, people. Thank you, Jules. You know what they say: a penny saved is a penny earned. Buke. Speaking of, Memphis and Petty Hardaway are trying to win their way into the big dance. They're desperate. Julian returns after the break with his 2 cents on college basketball. Ladies and gentlemen, the first automatic bid to the NCAA tournament will be decided today. So yes, we're in March. Yes, for the next 10 minutes, we will be marching along with Julian Edlow, dishing out some of his favorite bets on the final Saturday of the college basketball regular season. Jules, looking at this slate here, it's loaded. This is the first chunk of day games that we will focus on in this segment. So this slate today, UNC Duke, Kansas, Houston, and SEC regular season champion Tennessee hosting the red-hot Kentucky Wildcats in a top 25 matchup. You touched on this a little bit in your warm-up bet. A win for Kentucky here too, Jules, would secure a double bye in the conference tournament. Could spoil Tennessee's number 1 seed dreams. Sounds like you're back in Kentucky here today. Maybe a letdown spot for the Vols.
Yeah, it's not like Tennessee is just going to lay down here. Like, they're playing at home in a rival game against Kentucky. That's always a big game. But when this game was scheduled for the final Saturday of the regular season, I think that more impact was expected. Tennessee just had a great week. They went on the road and won 2 road games. They had the huge win at Alabama that was essentially for the conference. And then they wrapped it up at South Carolina, which is no small feat. South Carolina's been tremendous this year. They won at Tennessee. It was a huge revenge spot for Tennessee. Now Tennessee comes back home. They're the winners of the SEC regular season. Like you mentioned, Kentucky still has plenty to play for. They have the bye to play for. They have the loss that Tennessee handed them on their own home floor to avenge. This one's come tumbling down from 9.5 to 7.5. I played it up at, I think, 9 when I put it out. 7.5 is a real close, about as far as I would go. I would see if maybe it ticks back up, but it's a good spot for Kentucky for sure. After the week that Tennessee just had, going back-to-back road games, winning them both, and securing the conference. Whereas Kentucky's playing with purpose in terms of seeding. They're playing for revenge after the home loss. And they've just been playing better overall lately than the first time these two teams met. They've been a machine offensively, not so great defensively, so we'll see if they can get any stops. But the way that they're scoring right now, it seems like they should be able to at least make this a game, even if they can't win it and improve their seeding.
All right, dude, let's go to the number 14 Jayhawks here, who have won at least a share of the Big 12 regular season title in 17 of the last 20 years here. However, Houston, number 1 in the country, comes into the conference looking to knock Kansas off of its perch here. Houston's already clinched a share of the regular season title, becoming the first program, Jules, in a high major conference in 32 years. That's more than 3 decades, Julian, to win a regular season conference in its first year. So, does Houston continue to hold on to that number 1 spot and remind Kansas that Houston is now the cream of the crop in the Big 12?
Yeah, there's a new sheriff in town.
Ooh, pew, pew, pew.
For a while. Nice. It's been Kansas's conference for a while, and that's saying a lot given how talented and deep the Big 12 has been over the years. But Houston's just been tremendous in recent years, needed a step up and took that step up to the best conference in college hoops, and they're going to come in and win it. This is a huge revenge spot. You remember, they were favored at the Phog earlier in the year, and Kansas won that game at home as an underdog. Now it's not only, it's everything we want here. It's a revenge spot for Houston. It's Houston playing for the conference in their first year in there. Like, this has everything set up for Houston in terms of spot-wise. And then you look at the numbers, and it backs Houston too. Kansas finally bounced back. They had a really bad week losing at home to BYU, and then they went on the road and dropped a game at Baylor. They finally bounced back at home in a rivalry game, in a rebound spot for them against K-State. But when the Jayhawks go on the road, they're just 3-7 against the spread this season. They have not been good at all. I'm gonna cut this number in half, lay 4.5 when we see that first half number with Houston in the first half. I think they're gonna come out ready to go here, get after it after that loss at Kansas. But you look at the first half numbers, and again, I told you why Kansas is poor on the road. Houston is the best first half defense in the country. They allow 25 points per game. You take that to home games, they're allowing 20.4 points per game at home in the first half. They just strangle the air out of you and do not let you get going in their own building. So I think you bundle this all up, and the angle is Houston first half rather than lay a lot for the game. Kansas money's come in. It dropped it from 9.5. Just some respect for Kansas with such a big number. Oh, they won't get beat by double digits. I think they probably will, but I think the first half is where Houston comes out and really gets after it.
All right, let's go back to the SEC here. Texas A&M on the road at Ole Miss. Ole Miss 1.5-point favorite. Both these teams, Jules, are desperate for a victory here. Regular season finale this afternoon. Which one do you believe gets it?
It is the home Rebels that I think are a little bit more desperate, Emerson. We got Ole Miss 14-3 at home. A&M is 5-6 straight up and against the spread at home, or on the road rather. But let's look at what these teams have done recently. The Aggies went on a brutal 5-game losing streak, 0-5 against the spread over that time. Lost some games as big favorites during that stretch, but they bounced back with a pair of wins. They were against poor teams in Mississippi State and Georgia, but they were wins nonetheless. Ole Miss is struggling, and they need the win more. They've lost, I think, four of their last 5. This is one of the games I know I mentioned in my warm-up take that I'm going to be looking at a lot of road teams today. This is one of the games where I think home court is going to matter a lot. Ole Miss is the more desperate team, the team in the get-right spot, so I'm taking Ole Miss on the money line here to defeat A&M.
Okay, so then does that mean you like Iowa State then at Kansas State? Because we know Kansas State has just continued to sputter down the stretch here, and the pressure is mounting.
Yeah, K-State is 13-3 at home. They've performed at home. They've beaten BYU. They've beaten Kansas. They have some signature wins there, but they are just 7-9 against the spread at home. They've been thriving as a home dog. They are that today, but remember what we said about what BYU, what Kansas are on the road. Not good. Well, what's Iowa State on the road? They're 7-2 against the spread. They've covered 6 in a row on the road, and the Cyclones are trending down towards like 3.5-point favorites. They play like Houston, and they beat Houston at home before going to Houston and losing. But they will take the life out of you defensively and score when they need to score. So I do like the Cyclones here on the road. Waiting for that 3.5 if I'm going to back them, but I think that's the side on this one.
What do you want to do with Villanova here? Because the Wildcats are on the bubble, entering today's matchup against Creighton, and can likely, correct me if I'm wrong, can likely punch a ticket to the dance if they defeat the Blue Jays at home.
Yeah, Villanova's head coach, Kyle Neptune, came out and said this is their Super Bowl. Unfortunately, somebody has to lose the Super Bowl, and it's going to be Villanova.
Wow.
I'm going with another road team here in Creighton. Creighton's 6-1 straight up and against the spread in their last 7 games. They've been a good road team all season. They're 7-4 straight up and against the spread on the road. Now, this game is also at Wells Fargo, where the Sixers play. It's not on campus for Villanova. So it loses a little bit of that juice when you go to the bigger arena. You get a different crowd rather than that hostile on-campus rowdy student crowd. So Villanova has not been that great at home. They've got a couple of interesting neutral and road wins, but Seton Hall is their only quad 1 home win. It's their best home win of the year. And then this is a revenge spot for Creighton. Villanova, I mentioned they have some good road wins. Well, Creighton's one of them. Early in Big East play, they went to Creighton, won by 1 in a close game. I think it might have even gone to overtime. But Villanova beat them out in Omaha. Now I like a really good road team in Creighton to come into Philly, go to a less hostile environment in the big NBA arena, and take down Villanova.
Two of the best AAC teams find themselves in need of a win here. FAU sitting on the safe side of the bubble. Memphis pretty much in desperation mode here. What do you want to do with this game on the DK Sportsbook?
Yeah, I'm going to go FAU. The number's growing a little bit. Memphis got the home win over FAU, so it's a good bounce back spot at home for the Owls. Memphis went off the rails a bit for a while. They're 4-0 straight up and against the spread in their last 4 games. Still just 5-7 against the spread on the road. 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 road games. As I mentioned, avenging the road loss. FAU 12-1 at home. Huge game for FAU's tournament chances. Number grew a little bit more than I wanted to, so I'm going to moneyline parlay it with Fordham, who plays my URI Rams, and my URI Rams are complete toast. So Fordham's the moneyline parlay piece to put whatever you want with.
Before we go to break here, Jules, Richmond and George Mason, Oklahoma at Texas. What do you got? What's your top bet between the two?
Well, let me squeeze Richmond in. Another road team, taking them on the money line here. They're 7-4 straight up and against the spread on the road. They've won 6 in a row. They're on a 14-4 ATS run. They are 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 road games. They've really gotten it together. George Mason's good at home, but they have home losses to Duquesne, Loyola Chicago, VCU. When solid teams in the A-10 come into their building, they're very capable of losing. Richmond's been the better team all year long. I think this is a spot that the Spiders get it done.
All right, we'll talk more hoops coming up, including UNC Duke. But after this break, deadline day officially over in the NHL. Golden Knights are swinging for the fences, beefing up their blue line. What it means for the Stanley Cup chances of Vegas coming up. It is the sweat. Time to do that hockey, and making their March 9th, 2024 debut, Jeff Ulrich of DraftKings Network, Anna Dua of NHL.com here for some NHL opening face-off. By the way, this is the same Anna Dua who we haven't seen since the Stadium Series. I know you had many highlights with that experience. The low light may have just been the food, Anna. Anyone who follows you know you love hockey, Josh Allen, and food. You're Canadian, so your passion for poutine is electric, except when you were at the Stadium Series. Here's a quick clip.
What's wrong with them? I'm like blown. That looks better than that.
Okay, why were you so disappointed in this?
Because look at it. Like, this isn't even like a bid. This was my genuine reaction. One of my production assistants just filmed me because I looked like I saw a ghost when they whipped this out when I ordered poutine. But first of all, it has waffle fries. Like, I don't know where that came out from. And then it has like 2 blobs of orange cheese, no gravy. And I was like, this is just like a hate crime at that point. Like, that was brutal. New Jersey has to do a lot to redeem itself in my eyes after that.
Jeff, you were born and raised in the backwoods of Canada. What grade would you give this bowl of poutine?
Yeah, that's not a bowl of poutine. That's something that a college kid makes for dinner in his dorm room with a microwave and like a slice of, Kraft single slice cheese. I don't even know how they pass that off a poutine. I don't even want to ask how much it cost, Anna, because it was probably ridiculously overpriced too. But yeah, that's pathetic on all levels.
I mean, also, you recently discovered here, Anna, that a Taylor ham pork roll, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and turn this entire segment into a food segment. Food takes from Anna Dua. That the Taylor ham pork roll is just Canadian bacon. Have you been able to recover from this shocking discovery?
Well, first of all, so I've lived in New Jersey now for the past 2 years, do a lot of stuff with the Devils. Everyone's told me a billion times, you got to get Taylor ham or pork roll. That's their biggest debate about which one to call it. And I was like, okay, I'll try it eventually. I go to a bagel spot, I order it, and they whip out something that looks like Canadian bacon. I think it's like Canadian bacon from unnamed sources, like the spam version of Canadian bacon is how I would describe it. But it's pretty much the same thing. And they were hyping it up like you can't find it anywhere else. And I was like, I've found it somewhere else, guys. Like, I've been finding it in somewhere else for a while now. So have not recovered. And to be honest, the internet gives me way too much power with these food takes. I have like the worst taste in food in like the history of the world.
Yeah.
I will openly admit it. But the people like it, so I'll keep going.
Jeff, you look like a big pork roll guy. Anything you'd like to add?
Oh, I just said I haven't eaten bacon for since I was like 9 years old. So, probably just best to move on to the next segment. No comment from me.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's talk about some less important stuff like the NHL trade deadline, which has come and gone. Some general managers here, you two, have been very busy. Let's hit on some of the more significant ones that we've seen, like the Golden Knights acquiring Calgary's Noah Hannafin, the team's top defenseman. He's having a career year, Jeff. What message is Vegas sending by making this move?
I know. I mean, I think that, obviously the Vegas Golden Knights are sending the message that, they kind of need to get their act together. I mean, I think this is a team that's still competitive. It's a veteran squad. They've struggled. They've really drifted down the standings last 2 months, and they've let teams like Calgary, the team who traded Hannafin to them, in Seattle, get close enough to where they're now in danger of potentially missing the playoffs. But they're a veteran team, and I think that management knows that they're probably more likely to get it together than not. And if they get in the playoffs, the Western Conference is wide open. And I think they're sending the message to their team that, look, guys, maybe things haven't gone the way we've planned, but we've added these 2 guys, Hannafin, Mantha, at the deadline. And, I think if this team gels, they're still potentially able to make some noise. But they do need to get it together. And I think that getting these guys is hopefully a bit of a wake-up call to the team.
Anna, how big of a boost is this for Vegas?
It's a pretty decent ad. I think it flies under the radar the year that Hannafin's having. I know you mentioned it, but he's got 35 points in 62 games this season. And when you compare it to the year he had last year with the Flames, he had 38 points in a total of 81 games. So he's playing some of his best hockey right now. The Golden Knights just keep getting better. The rich get richer. This is a team that's looking to go back to back.
And then there's Florida, too, who the Golden Knights are very familiar with after the Cup last year here, guys. The NHL's best team, we're talking there in Sunrise, Florida, is doing everything it can to get back to the final, beefing up the same way the Rangers did last year by acquiring Vladimir Tarasenko. I know his best days are behind him, Anna, but that doesn't mean he won't be a rock-solid addition to a red-hot Panthers team, does it?
Yeah, Florida's trying to make you proud right now, Emerson. But I don't even think Tarasenko's best days are behind him. Like, he's having an underrated year as well. He's got 41 points in 57 games. Phenomenal lineup placement, too, if he plays on that top line with Sasha Barkov and Sam Reinhart. Both of those guys are elite talents. They're having great years themselves, just insane chemistry. And if he joins that bunch, I love Tarasenko. This is one of my favorite pickups.
Jeff, could Tarasenko make this Panthers team the best one to date?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that what Tarasenko does, it gives them a lot of flexibility in their lineup as well. As Anna mentioned, he's probably a really good fit for their top line, but certainly, he played a bit more of a role, lower down role with the centers, and he's certainly still capable of doing that, being just a third line or a special teams player. It's just a really good pickup. I don't even really think they needed that. Florida to me is going to be driven by their defense and if their defensemen stay healthy. Ekblad, Montour, when those guys were out, they struggled. If they're healthy, their back end is healthy, they're probably going to be good to go. Tarasenko certainly is a nice addition, and it won't shock me if he ends up being scoring a pivotal goal or at some point in the playoffs. I don't think his best days are necessarily all the way behind him either.
Seems like all the teams in the East just doing whatever they can to keep up with Florida, including Anna's preseason Stanley Cup pick. That would be the Hurricanes. You're going to be covering the Hurricanes and the Devils this afternoon from the Prudential Center. They've been churning and burning through the Metro here, Anna, landing arguably the biggest name on the trade market after pulling off a blockbuster deal with the Penguins here. We're talking for Jake Gunsel, following that up by grabbing Evgeny Kuznetsov from the Capitals. Carolina is not traditionally a big spender at the trade deadline, so why now, Anna?
They're not, but they want to go all the way this year. They're at the top of my report card for this trade deadline with the moves they've made. Adding Jake Guentzel was huge. They really want to add more scoring ability to this roster, but I was a bit worried because I thought he was going to go from playing with Sidney Crosby to being on Carolina's second line, and they kind of rotate their second line center through a couple of different guys. Their top line remains untouched with Teravainen, Svechnikov, and Aho. They're not going to break that up. I was like, who's Guentzel going to play with? Maybe this hits his individual value a little bit. And then they bring in Evgeny Kuznetsov, and Kuznetsov at his best when he's doing well, he's a great center in this league. And if they're playing together, I really like that fit. Getting both of them was critical in my eyes. Carolina did a great job, and they want to be the last team standing. It's pretty evident.
Jeff, how much do these moves elevate Carolina's cup chances?
I mean, I think that of the significance of the moves, like this is the most significant that we've seen. I mean, obviously Carolina had a pretty solid lineup before, but we've seen them in the playoffs as well. They're just missing that extra edge. They're missing the depth scoring. Sebastian Aho is a really good center, but he can't do it all. Svechnikov is a little bit too hot and cold as well to just kind of dominate, but adding a legitimate second line, the guy like Guentzel can get really hot on the power play. Kuznetsov, I think a lot of how much success they're going to do is actually going to come down to Kuznetsov. I mean, he is a very high-end center when he's at his best, and he's been at his best for the Capitals in the past. But whether he can just come in and elevate, that's going to be interesting to see. If he can, I really think it gives Carolina a chance. At the very least, you have to love the fact that Carolina is going all in, because this team has been at the doorstep too many times, and we kind of all know that they've just needed a little bit of extra depth, a little bit of extra scoring. They've gone out and tried to get it this year. Can't fault them for that at all.
Yeah, we'll see how all these trades that went down leading up to yesterday's trade deadline impact these teams moving forward. Going to be a fun race to the finish for sure. And a big game on tonight's slate, 7 o'clock Eastern time, you two. Philly and Tampa, huge for the Metro and wild card race. Who has the edge in this one, in your opinion, Anna?
I like the Tampa Bay Lightning in this one. And speaking of the trade deadline, they picked up a sneaky good fit in Anthony Duclair. He had 8 points, including 5 goals in his past 4 games with the Sharks. Going to make his Tampa Bay debut in this matchup. He's a great player as well when he's healthy, and I like Tampa in this one.
Okay, Jeff, giving Philly any kind of shot here?
Absolutely. Tampa Bay, it won't shock me if they bounce back. They had a brutal loss to Calgary the last time out. I mean, they got absolutely pants. 5-on-5, they have not been good, but they're a veteran team at home. Philly coming off a big win as well. They got Konecny back, but this is probably a bit of a letdown spot. I would probably side with Tampa here as well, even though I really don't like how they've looked over the last month.
We'll get you guys out of here with this. Favorite DFS play for today's slate. What you got, Jeff?
Jamie Panarin, really like the spot for the Rangers power play going up against the St. Louis Blues. Blues allow a ton of shots on the road. They have not been good on the road. They're 1-7-1 over the last 9 road games. Binnington's played good, but I think there's cracks showing there as well. I think the Rangers could put up 5 or 6 goals here. So Panarin for me would be the lead horse there.
Anna, who's it going to be?
I'm right there with Jeff on the Rangers, but I'm not going to go for the big name. I'm going with Vincent Trocheck, who in my eyes is one of the most underrated players every single night. The Blues, great matchup for the Rangers, as Jeff said, but Vincent Trocheck, he's got 12 points, including 7 goals in his past 9 games. Great lineup placement. The biggest beneficiary of playing with all those star players on the Rangers, so I really like his look.
Appreciate you too. Your job here is done. Happy eating, Anna. Jeff will talk to you on tomorrow's show. There it is. Going out with a bang in the American version of poutine. Wow, that looks really sad. UFC 299 arrives tonight from South Beach. How much V sends Matt Brown like Sean O'Malley to avenge the only loss of his career? We're breaking down a meaty fight card next. to throw down here on the sweat. We've got UFC 299 in Miami tonight. The evening features plenty of noteworthy fights you can bet on DraftKings Sportsbook, and VSiN's Matt Brown, host of The Handle on VSiN, as well as the All Angles Pod and the Long Shots Pod, joining us now. Did I forget anything there, Matt?
I mean, you know what? Listen, it is good that you mentioned both the football and the golf pod. Listen, I am very proud of both of those. That said, the resume does stop there. We're not getting any further. We're going no deeper. We're going to stop with the football and the golf, and we go on from there.
That's still a pretty stacked LinkedIn bio. I'm proud of you. And you know what else is stacked? UFC 299 tonight, dude. We got ourselves a rematch for the bantamweight title between Sean O'Malley here, dude, and Marlon Vera for the main event. O'Malley, the favorite at minus 265. Little juicy there on the money line. So how do you feel about a plus 215 Vera upset?
Yeah, I mean, O'Malley is a pretty polished fighter all around, but Cheeto's going to press the action. He's going to put some pressure on O'Malley for sure. And I expect at some point in this fight, Cheeto might even go to that strategy of take 3 to give 1 and see if he can go in there and really mess with O'Malley, who's had a problem with drop foot a couple of different times in his UFC career, where he'll get kicked in the leg and it's like his foot goes numb and stuff. And so I think that that's a real thing that we could at least consider here in this fight. Cheeto's got a couple of KO wins last 5 fights. They were against dudes on the downside of their career. Frankie Edgar and Dominic Cruz, those guys certainly in the latter half of their career. That being said, I look at O'Malley's fight against Peter Yan, and I scored it for Yan, and a lot of people in the industry did as well. I don't know if O'Malley would be looked at the way that he is right now, obviously, if that fight goes the way that I thought that it actually went. So I think there is a little bit of value on Vera in this thing. I'll put it this way. There's no way I'm laying the money with O'Malley in this fight. Like, no way, no how. I think Cheeto has a better chance of getting this done than the odds dictate right now.
Yeah, and O'Malley trying to avenge the only loss of his 18-fight career to Cheeto back in 2020, I believe it was. What's the strength of these two guys here, Matt? Like, do you have a lean on winning method or other props in this main event?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Cheeto, just his strength is just toughness and durability. I mean, this is a guy that has never been stopped. All 8 of his losses are by decision. He has never been finished in a fight, and I expect that will continue again tonight in this fight. If he were to lose, it would probably be a decision loss. And so I think if you are leaning the O'Malley side of things, I think O'Malley by decision makes a lot of sense. I think if you're leaning over on the Cheeto side of things, I think you could look at like under total on the rounds, because I think that Cheeto gets it done inside the distance. I don't think there is a Cheeto win to be had by decision. I think O'Malley, that means O'Malley has stood the test of time here in the 5 rounds and has been able to kind of pick apart things. Like I said, he's going to be the busier fighter. He's going to be out there like really throwing way more than Cheeto does. Cheeto, kind of like I said, will take the 3 to give 1. And in the eyes of these judges sometimes, man, it's just volume looks really, really good. And I expect that this goes to decision. It'll probably be O'Malley. And on the other side, if you do like Cheeto and you don't want to play him just on the money line, Cheeto inside the distance.
Well, Matt, let's go to the co-main event here. Dustin Poirier heading into the fight as an underdog, plus 180 against Benoit Saint-Denis, one of UFC's best prospects here, who has finished 5 of his 6 UFC opponents. You think this one's set up to go the distance?
So let me preface this by saying I am from Louisiana. So is Dustin Poirier. I've known Dustin Poirier since he was like 16 years old. So I'm not going to,
careful.
There's no bias in this. I promise you when I say this, but I expect this first round to be a little contained, at least to start. Both of these guys know the power that each of them has. And I actually think they'll be a little subdued here at the beginning. Because, I mean, if you're Saint Denis, you've been around long enough to know what Dustin's been able to do to these guys at 155, which you don't see a ton. And then if you're Dustin's a smart, savvy dude. He's watched a bunch of, he knows Saint Denis is super dangerous in there. So I think Saint Denis goes in, tries to get to work on Dustin's legs, tries to kind of soften him up a little bit to get him ready for some takedowns. Because I think Saint Denis knows he does have the advantage there. If there is a weakness to Dustin's game, his takedown defense isn't the best. And I think that Saint Denis could, in fact, kind of take advantage of that. So it's, for me, I think like earlier Saint Denis, kind of later towards Dustin.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up, because a key element to this fight is that it's going to be contested at 5 rounds, right? Instead of the typical 3 for a co-main event. So I'm thinking that advantage should swing the fight towards Poirier, who has far more 5-round experience than the God of War, right?
Oh, absolutely. That is, I think that's the perfect handicap for this fight and that actually can lead us to another bet that you could look at here. And I know it seems like a cop out when you go on and say like, oh, here's a live angle, because most people just want to put their bets in before the event begins and then move on. And I get that. But if you want to remind yourself when this fight comes around for a live angle, man, if this thing gets through the first 2 rounds and there's a juicy price on Dustin Poirier as we head into the later rounds, I would be really looking to get in live on Dustin Poirier, because as you mentioned, you get into the deeper waters here. This is a guy that's been around the block. He's got great cardio. He got that experience. And I think it really does start to favor Dustin as we get into later rounds. I think if you like St. Denis, you probably like a KO prop because you think Dustin's washed. He is an older fighter, and we have the stats to prove that once these guys get older, you get 35 plus, you just start to lose it a little bit. He's coming off of a KO loss. That being said, it was 7 months ago. It wasn't like it was a quick turnaround or anything like that. So I think that you're probably looking at an under if you like St. Denis. I think you're probably looking at the St. Denis KO price as well if you like St. Denis. And if you like Dustin going the distance, Dustin live, because he might lose that first round. He might lose the first 2 rounds, but like, I think there's a very good chance he could come back and win those last 3, given, what he has in that gas tank. And so I think there's multiple different angles to attack this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that advice for the live betting it there, because St. Denis too has yet to see the 3rd round since his UFC debut as well. As we mentioned, great card. What's another fight you're looking forward to betting tonight?
Yeah, I mentioned Peter Yan and how I actually had him winning the fight against O'Malley. He's going up against Song Yadong. It's pretty interesting. So he's lost 4 of his last 5 fights in the UFC. So I think we're kind of getting a discount here on him. One of the losses was to Marab, who's amazing and has won 10 straight fights and is just absolutely a killer. One was a disqualification to Aljo. So that's a loss, and it goes down as a loss. And people who are just looking at wins and losses and hear that, oh, he's lost 4 of his last 5, but that was a disqualification. And then the other 2 were split decisions. And as we know, when you go to the judges and you get a split decision, there's all kinds of wackiness that goes into all that. One of those was to Aljo. And again, like, that was very, very close. There were a lot of people who had that fight for Yan as opposed to Aljo. So there's all of that, right, that goes into all of this. And so for me, I think we're getting a little bit of a discount on Yan in this fight, given what his recent track record is, and people not really digging in and seeing that, he's lost 4 of the last 5. They are 4 losses to the very, very best in that division. A couple of split decision losses in there as well, and one was a disqualification. So I do think we're getting some value on Yan.
Who else is on upset alert tonight? What do you think? You got an underdog? Any more underdogs you like?
So here's the thing. Sometimes we have to assume things, and it'll just obviously get us into horrible positions. But I would like to assume that Gilbert Burns is going to go in there and be content to make it a boring fight against Jack Della Maddalena. And I think that there is a chance that Gilbert Burns goes in and, as a plus money underdog here, gets this thing done. The guy is beyond a world-class jiu-jitsu practitioner, right? He's 37 years old, and sometimes these 37-year-olds don't want to grind when they get in there. It's hard work to do the wrestling and jiu-jitsu stuff in a 3-round. For 15 minutes, if you guys have never rolled around with someone or you've never wrestled, it is draining on the body. We sometimes see these older guys go, I'm not going to do that. I'll go in there and slug it out. And if I get knocked out, or if I knock the other guy out, it is what it is. But I want to believe that Gilbert Burns will go to his roots. I want to believe that Gilbert Burns will do and play to his strength in this one. And if he can close the distance, get up there, get a hold of him and get him to the ground, I think that this could be not only a decision win for Burns, but I think he might be able to even pull a submission as well. So I'm going to take a shot that rational thinking, rational game planning will take over here for Burns, and that he can get this done.
And I want to believe that Mike Tyson will knock Jake Paul the F out when these 2 dudes collide in the boxing ring on July 7th. How much does this move the needle for you, dude?
So it moves the needle for me about as much as so I'm paying a ticket to see the bearded lady at the circus or something,
nice.
Right? It's one of those things where I'm going for the entertainment value of the weirdness of it and all of that, but it's not a real true sporting event, right? I mean, it's Mike Tyson is probably the most dangerous 57-year-old maybe walking the planet. So I'm not going to say that hey, he can't do it, but he is fighting a guy half his age. He is fighting a guy that has been training every day for the last several years, where Tyson, as we know, has not. And so it's just, Will I watch it? Of course. Of course I'm going to watch it. You and I, you're going to watch it. I'm going to watch it. Of course I'm going to watch it. But it's kind of like, hey, it's more WWE than actual sporting event to me.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it all comes down, will it be an official sanctioned event or an exhibition? But anywho, real quick here, Matt, what's coming up on the handle? So noon to 2 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more of the API, Arnold Palmer Invitational. It's going on, but we'll talk about some live strategy. We'll also talk about what we're looking for on Sunday as well. We're going to talk some NFL division odds that are up over there at DraftKings Sportsbook as well. We're going to give our top 5 NFL draft bets that we would make today. So you can tune in and see if you want to get something in your account for the NFL draft. And my co-host, Mike Somich, big into horse racing. So anybody that's got the DK Horse app out there, word has it, this guy even talks to horses sometimes. Like, he's got like the beat in, like texting back and forth with them how they're feeling on the race day and stuff like that. So he'll give us some horse racing picks as well. So big show ready for us on the handle.
Second hour of the Sweat kicking off right now. We've covered a lot throughout the first hour of this program. We know American poutine is not a thing. So we got all wrapped up in a Canadian-American delicacy that we didn't even get to Winnipeg's deadline day, which was thrilling. Hurdle also headed to Vegas and another stunner. And then we just talked to the Handle's Matt Brown about UFC 299. And guess what? We got even more goodness ahead in the second hour. Backed by unpopular demand, Julian Edlow talking hoops as we keep marching along. How about a rematch between the top two brutes in the ACC, one of the 8 games we will attempt to touch on in this segment. Duke returning to Cameron Indoor for a date with arch rival North Carolina, Jules. Perhaps no team in the conference has been hotter than the Blue Devils. They won 8 of 9 following their loss at UNC in early February. Which side of this rivalry are you on today?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's a good revenge spot at home for Duke, but this number's a little bit too out of control for me. I thought it would be a lot closer. I will go with one of the many road teams that I'm going with today. I'll take the Tar Heels plus 5.5. UNC, Duke's been solid at home. They're always good at Cameron Indoor. You got to give them that. But UNC, really tough on the road. They're 7-2 straight up. They're 6-3 against the spread. You want to look at UNC Duke in recent history, they're 10-4 against the spread in their last 14 against the Blue Devils. You want to look at their trips historically to Cameron Indoor, UNC is 12-6 against the spread in their last 18 trips to Cameron Indoor. You remember a couple years ago in Coach K's final game, UNC, with a lot of the players that they have now, went into Cameron Indoor and won that game outright as a double-digit dog. RJ Davis, Baycott, a lot of these guys. UNC has a very veteran group. They've done this before. And I think getting 5.5 at Cameron Indoor is just too many for the better team in the Tar Heels. So I think UNC is live to win this game outright, and I will gladly take 5.5 with them.
Will definitely be a difficult contest for him. Will definitely be UConn's arguably most difficult road game. Here we go, talking more road teams here, Jules. In conference play, they're taking on Providence. Providence, very desperate, like a lot of teams out there right now. Heading to the dunk. Yes, it will always be the dunk to us. With the Big East tournament on the horizon and the Friars here, Jules, looking to enter the NCAA tournament field, please tell us where the betting value is in this game.
Yeah, I wish I was able to go to this one tonight. This is going to be a rowdy atmosphere at the AMP, as it is now called, but the Dunk. This is, I can't go road team here. Fading UConn is terrifying. They're 7-3 straight up and 6-4 against the spread on the road. But kind of like that Tennessee-Kentucky spot, UConn just locked up the Big East. Providence is playing for their tournament lives, and a win over UConn could potentially get them there, this type of win. So PC needs to a win to have a chance unless they're going to just make a big run in the Big East tournament. Look at Providence as an underdog and as a home underdog. They're fantastic. And, if there's one type of animal that gets in the way of the numbers, it is UConn. I'll admit that. But Providence is 9-3 against the spread as an underdog this season. 5-7 outright, but 9-3 against the spread. They have been an underdog. This is the 4th time they're going to be a home dog. The 3 previous times they've been a home dog. They're 3-0 against the spread, covering by 13.2 points per game. They have been fantastic in this role. Desperation. We're out to double digits now. Give me 10. Hopefully it ticks up to 10.5 with PC at home, and I'm just going to hold on here and hope that UConn doesn't go bonkers.
You think Marquette is trying to hold on as well because shorthanded, taking on Xavier. Xavier lost to Butler the other day. Jules, Marquette coming off a 2-game losing streak featuring tough games against Creighton and UConn. How are you going to navigate this on the DK Sportsbook?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I ultimately may pass. Marquette loses 2 tough games against the other 2 best teams in the conference in UConn and Creighton, but they lose those 2 games without Tyler Kolek, who's arguably the best point guard in the country. Marquette 6-5 straight up, 5-6 against the spread in their 11 road games, but no Kolek changes everything, and it obviously changed this number. Xavier would never be this short of a dog against Marquette. Marquette's off 2 losses, but kind of expected losses. Like I said, given the teams they were playing and who they didn't have. But Xavier's also off that bad loss to Butler. It's a much bigger game for Xavier. I would lean towards Xavier at home. Marquette's not going to get dinged for any of these losses they have without Kolek. They just want to get him healthy. So it could be one of those spots where Xavier comes through. But Xavier hasn't even been that great at home, and that's what's ultimately going to have me pass here. It wouldn't surprise me if Marquette did finally show up and say, hey, we can win a game without Kolek when we're not playing, the best of the best.
Let's go West. Let's go Big 12, or not Big 12, but Pac-12 rather. Oregon State coming off a big win here, Jules, hosting a big dance bubble team. We're talking Colorado, regular season finale for both of these squads. Colorado's coming into this game hot, winners of 5 straight. So do you want to stick with the Buffs continuing this win streak?
Yeah, it's a big game for Colorado in terms of winning it outright for their tournament chances. Losing to Oregon State would hurt them a bit. But I played Oregon State plus 8.5. I think it's 8 now. I'm fine with that. Colorado is 3-7 straight up and against the spread on the road, and they're off that big road win against Oregon. It's going to be tough to, get both of these road games. Beavers, very dangerous home dog, 7-2 against the spread as a home dog this season, covering by 8.6 points per game. Beavers also 5-0 against the spread in their last 5. Oregon State on a 7-1 against the spread run at home. This is just a team that's playing really well right now in Oregon State and playing really well at home. So given how many points they're getting, I think they will at least keep this one close.
Okay, for any Tarleton State fans, any fans of the WAC or Seattle U, we got a nice matchup today on this Saturday in March. Why did you want to talk about this game?
Because it's a good game. Tarleton State's a good team, and they're getting too few points at home here against Seattle. Seattle just lost 2 in a row. They're 4-8 on the road, and Tarleton's 10-3 at home and off a bad Utah Valley loss as a 7-point favorite. Tarleton State's the second best team in the WAC behind Grand Canyon, but they're not tournament eligible. So they're just going all out here to finish their season because they can't make the big dance. And they're way too short of a favorite here at home against Seattle. I think they're the much better team. They play in a tiny little gym that is going to be going bonkers for this Seattle game. I like laying the points with Tarleton State. I think that they're going to get this one.
Tiny little gyms are old school. The environment in those establishments tend to be electric. And Tarleton State, by the way, 7-5-1 against the spread when favored by 2 points or more this season. Jules, New Mexico at Utah State. What do you have?
Yeah, I'm going to go. I wanted to play Utah State as a shorter favorite here. I may pass at this number, but Utah State is on they're 6-1 straight up. They're in their last 7 games. They're 6-0 against the spread in their last 6 home games against New Mexico. Just Utah State's 13-1 at home this season. 8-4 against the spread. One of those games was a team that just didn't even have a spread. Away, New Mexico's 5-5. They're 4-6 against the spread. I think New Mexico is 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games overall. So some money came in on New Mexico here because of their talent and because of the desperation that they have in the conference. But I do ultimately think that Utah State at home here is the right side. Just a more difficult place to play than it gets credit for. One of the better home floors in the nation. And New Mexico definitely needs it, but just because they need it, it doesn't mean that they're going to get over how poor they've been playing of late. Their loss as a 17-point home favorite to Air Force really speaks to how poorly they've been playing lately.
All right, talk about teams who are playing poorly. How about the Utes and the Ducks? I feel like they entirely worked their way out of the NCAA tournament bubble conversation, coming off losses on Thursday, both those teams. So is this one more about these two trying to improve their picture in the NIT?
Yeah, these teams have been going in the wrong direction for sure. Utah is a really bad road team. I think they have 2 road wins on the season, and one of them was kind of a fluky one against UCLA. And you have Oregon, who is a pretty solid home team. They're coming off the bad home loss to Colorado, who arguably needed that one more. I don't think they're going to lose 2 in a row at home, especially to a team that's been so awful on the road. So I think this is a get-right spot for Oregon, but the spread is pretty much doubled. It's up to 4 now. So ultimately, I may pass on this one, or you take Oregon on the money line and put them with a really big favorite just to get them down to win the game. So you don't need them. You need them to win by 5 to win your bet now. That's a little steep, but everything does point to Oregon being the right side of this one.
All right, last one here. Steph Curry, everyone knows, building his legacy starting at Davidson. By the way, Caitlin Clark surpassing Steph Curry, breaking the NCAA record for three-pointers in a season yesterday. You want to discuss Davidson at St. Joe's, so take it away.
Well, yeah, if Steph Curry was playing, that would probably change my opinion on Davidson, but he's not, so I'm not. I'll go St. Joe's here.
There he is.
Davidson is coming undone a bit. 4 straight losses. They're 1-5 straight up in their last 6 games. They're just 4-7 on the road this season. St. Joe's isn't playing too great, but they're still 13-3 at home this season. We saw St. Joe's has talent. Like, they competed with Kentucky early in the season and looked good. They clearly have a talent advantage, and I think they're in a get-right spot against a team that is spiraling. So give me St. Joe's at home here. I liked the opening number of laying 3.5. That's gone up a little bit. But I think 4.5 is probably as far as I would go here with Joe's.
All right, thank you, Julian. We're going to remind everyone that Steve Buchanan is here in studio coming up next. Yes, speed kills, and Steve is here to talk about some of the odds when it comes to the stealing bases props department. Welcome back to the Sweat, everybody. Welcome back inside the MLB market. Welcome back to Steve Buchanan. We are here to shop some of the best baseball deals on the DraftKings Sportsbook, and leading the shopping excursion will be you, Bukes, and we're going to talk some totals here for stolen bases. Now, we have seen really a seismic shift in this market because
Earth-shattering.
the wider bases, as you can see some of the numbers here compared to 2023 to 2022. The wider bases, Steve, drew much of the attention. The new rules, though, limiting pickoff attempts and speeding up a pitcher's delivery has tremendously helped boost steals league-wide, has it not?
Yeah, and I think that's going to continue this year. And I was very curious when the numbers came out for this year, just like how inflated some of these totals were going to be because of how much people were stealing bases last year. And then a rule change for this year too is that I think it's like 2 seconds less that a pitcher has to throw when men are on base.
Oh God, these numbers are going to blow up even more.
Yeah, so even more so too. So last year, obviously, there was a change in how they're going to do the bases here. Went from 15 square inches to 18 square inches. I don't care about that stuff. It's like trigonometry stuff, whatever. But the numbers from 2022 to 2023 were just absolutely phenomenal in the up usage of stealing bases here. Stolen bases attempts 1.8 per game in 2023, up from 1.4 in 2022. Actual stolen bases went from 1.4 last year. That's up from just 1.0 in 2022. And then stolen base success rate, we just had that graphic over there, 80.2% last year, up from 75.4% in 2022. Just to really kind of put this in perspective, just how much guys were utilizing the stolen base, which really was like a dying art coming into the 2022 season. If you look back in 2022, there was 24 players that stole at least 20 bases, only 6 players that stole 30 plus bases. Last year, there were 51 players that stole at least 20 bases last year. 18 of those guys had over 30 stolen bases, and we had 3 guys last year with 50 plus stolen bases. Corbin Carroll, Astoria Ruiz, and Ronald Acuna Jr., who obviously had over 70 last year. This should continue this year. And honestly, when you're looking at the numbers on DraftKings Sportsbook, the over-under for some of these guys, there's still some really reasonable numbers here, and we're going to take advantage of some of those.
Yeah, and Trey Turner's been a guy who you see a lot in the stolen base market.
Yes.
And last year, while he only stole 30, it was on 30 attempts. So,
he was perfect.
Given his literal perfection on the base paths, I wouldn't be too shocked if he decided to kind of push the limits a little more this year and generate some, surplus value for his team here, Steve. So 27.5, what do we like?
I was shocked at that number. He was actually somebody that I was very curious about what his number was going to look like. And it's at 27.5. So an even lower total than he had last year. He's gone over this number in 7 of the 9 seasons that he's played. In the seasons that he didn't go over, one of them was in 2015. He only played in 27 games. 2020, which was the COVID year, but he was on pace for 33. And obviously the limited amount of games that they played in that year, only 6 games played in 2020. And then in 2022, he had 27 stolen bases. So right at that mark there. But like you mentioned, Emerson, he was perfect on the base paths during the regular season there, swiping on all 30 of his attempts. He's going to want to run. They want to use that. Obviously, he's a power guy too as well. He had that huge power surge in the second half of the season here, but he is somebody that when he's on base, he's trying to advance. So I was shocked when I saw 27.5. That's the number I'm definitely jumping on. Give me the over on Trey Turner for this upcoming season.
What's the number here for Michael Harris, who was the NL Rookie of the Year in 2022 with the Braves?
So this is actually one of the rare spots where I'm taking an under on stolen bases here from Michael Harris at 24.5. It feels like a very obtainable number, but he's landed exactly on 20 stolen bases in the 2 seasons that he's played. He's played 114 games in 2022 and then 138 last year, exactly on 20. Now, that doesn't mean I'm expecting him to get 20 in this, but there are a couple things that I don't like about Harris to go over this number. First, and really important here, he does not walk a lot. This is not somebody that's going to be patient at the plate. He only has a walk rate of 4.7 for his career. That is really low for somebody that's now played over 2 years at the major league level. If you also look at some of his metrics, he's going to be hitting for a lot more power, I think, this upcoming year. His ground ball rate really dropped during the regular season last year, where his fly balls and his line drive numbers really went up. I think they really kind of view him as somebody who could be more of a power threat in this Braves offense. So if that's the case, if he's hitting for more doubles, hitting for more home runs, obviously you're not really trying to steal third base in that type of scenario. So with the combination of him not really walking, probably hitting for more power this year, I think this is an opportunity to take an under on a stolen base prop, because again, this is a number that's more inflated, whereas, Trey Turner was down to 27.5, Michael Harris are expecting him at 25 maybe. I think this is going to be an under here. I'm comfortable taking that in that power lineup that is the Braves, especially him hitting near the lower half of the lineup. I think he's going under his stolen base prop.
How surprised were you to see Corbin Carroll's number at 43.5? This is a dude who doesn't need to run more. He stole 54 bases last year, plus 5 more during Arizona's pennant run. But if he wants to run more, he's this dynamic young superstar who some people say can steal bases like Ricky Henderson, for crying out loud. What a hell of a comparison.
Right, and it's an unbelievable comparison here too, but this is somebody who their number is at 43.5. Like a couple of years ago, that'd be like absurd. Probably not. But with how everything is laid out now in Major League Baseball, this is an over that I still like. He is one of the fastest runners in the league. He was top 10 in sprint speed at 30.1. You can kind of find these stats here on Baseball Savant, which is a really good stuff, really good website for StatCast stats and stuff like that. You can kind of see some of these stats here, but that lands him in the 99th percentile in Major League Baseball. Obviously, like you mentioned, had 54 steals last year. In a normal year, that probably beats everybody, but that was only second in the league to Ronald Acuna Jr. The thing I like about Carroll, and this kind of is different from Michael Harris, he is a power guy, talking about Corbin Carroll, but he also will draw some walks. He will get on base. His career on base percentage at this point sits at .357. That's through 187 games played in Major League Baseball thus far. And he's hitting atop a stacked Diamondbacks lineup. Like, the Diamondbacks weren't a splashy team in this offseason that made a bunch of moves, but they just made some good, solid moves to help their lineup here, because they brought in some guys like Eugenio Suarez, Jock Peterson, that's going to hit for power, and it's going to be even better now because Corbin Carroll gets on base at such a high clip here. And behind him, this is another thing I really like, behind him is Ketel Marte, who is really patient at the plate as well. That really kind of helps Corbin Carroll pick his spots. He'll go deep into counts because Marte is somebody who will draw a lot of walks. So there could be a lot of traffic on this Diamondbacks base pass overall. But Corbin Carroll here, obviously 43.5 is a huge, huge number that we have to worry about. But I do think he goes over on this one with the speed that he has, the guys that are surrounding him in that lineup. I really think that everybody has to see pitches here because the top of that lineup is so top heavy. But I think this is a great spot to back Corbin Carroll, go over that number of 43.5.
And just a bigger picture for him and how high expectations are as well. He's got the 4th best odds on the DK Sportsbook to lead Major League Baseball in stolen bases. He's at plus 700.
I mean, it's hard to not kind of like that there, too. Yeah. And obviously the guys who are surrounding him are the guys that stole some of the most bases here with Ruiz and Acuna Jr., but Elly De La Cruz is in the mix there, too, as well. The only reason I don't like De La Cruz, because a lot of people have been talking about him as a guy to lead, is that he's very, very aggressive at the plate. He's going to produce a lot of strikeouts when he's at the plate. He's going to have like over a 30% strikeout rate, which is, not great in this Major League Baseball day and age. But I think Corbin Carroll, you're getting some good value there at 7-1 for somebody that you can basically lock in for 40+ steals. And Acuna Jr. already hurt, already dealing with some issues here. So if that takes him out of the mix, really comes down to Ruiz, Carroll, and I think Bobby Wood Jr. for guys that you can consider.
Now, we had recently retired World Series champion Eric Hosmer on this show last weekend. He mentioned in our interview that he really likes a nice bounce back year for Tatis Jr. A whole
Oh, the guy he yelled at.
Yeah.
For the Grand Slam. Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Exactly.
Got it.
And so Tatis Jr. has a full offseason here of not screwing around off the field.
No motorcycles.
No motorcycles.
Uber's
dialed
your
in.
friend.
Fully training.
Yep.
Just focusing on baseball here. And if he remains primarily healthy this season, he could really put together an MVP campaign. And you like him on the base paths here to go over 28.5.
Yeah, so this is a high number for him historically, because this is a number he's only gone over once in his career so far. Through 141 games, he was exactly where you needed to hit the over at 29. But there's a few things I like here. He's going to be full-time in right field. That it really is going to mitigate the chance of injuries. Whereas where he was a shortstop or, playing in a different spot in the outfield, there's obviously a higher chance of getting injured. Playing at right field is probably the safest spot that you can put him to keep him on the field as much as possible. Now, you have to remember too, this is not a stacked Padres lineup anymore. They had to get rid of some guys. Juan Soto no longer in the mix. Does that kind of have Tatis try to make things happen here on his own a little bit more here? He's got the speed. He should be fully healthy coming into this season here. I think he goes over 28.5. It's a little bit of a scary number because of all the stuff that's happened to him, suspensions, injuries, and whatnot. But if he's fully healthy, plays a full complement of games, he should get close to 30 stolen bases.
Hey, man. Great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the help.
Yep.
See you tomorrow.
Now I'm going to go home.
There's no Verstappen, Max Verstappen, or is there? Piers Dietrich is here breaking down today's F1 race with some NASCAR nuggets mixed in as well. Tasty. You know what they say, rub it is racing, and you can't rub said race without DraftKings Network star, Pierce Dietrich, the Max Verstappen of our company. Good morning, Professor. How would you describe your day so far? It's great to have you here. Look at that beautiful smile. Your skin looks great. Wow.
Yeah, it's going well. Skin's doing well today.
That's fantastic. We're excited here, but our F1 enthusiasm and preseason excitement fizzled out pretty quickly, Pierce, after the season opener last weekend. Talking F1, and surprise, surprise, Mr. Verstappen wins once again. Can you just open up that great brain of yours and tell me how his continued domination could prove to be bad for business? What do you think?
Yeah, it's bad for business.
It
is.
is.
Any sport where one team dominates and constantly wins. But, maybe if you look at it from the professional wrestling perspective, the WWE has kind of gotten away with like the same guys winning over and over. Just it aggravates the fans. It gets them coming back. So from like the heel perspective, it kind of works. But that doesn't always work in sports. People want different winners. So I get that. That's bad. But at the same time, we've talked about this before. If you watch a Mavericks game, Luka Doncic is going to score the most points. That doesn't make it any less compelling. So you root for the other guys to do well. So you can root for drivers to finish second, third, or fourth. You can root for a guy to get a double-double or have a good game. Just because Doncic steals the show doesn't mean it's just a complete waste.
Yeah, I think about definitely a lot of sports fans out there a lot of the times end up hating sports dynasties. I think Tiger Woods was good for golf when he couldn't stop winning. Verstappen did say last year, if you can't appreciate his dominance, then you're not a fan. What do you think about that?
That's pretty bold.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would go that far. Like I remember when Jordan was winning all the time, I hated it. But you look back years later and you appreciate it.
Yes.
You look back at the Patriots and you appreciate it. But while it's happening, it's the worst.
It's true. And second race of the season is underway less than 3 hours from now in Saudi Arabia at high noon Eastern time, which I freaking love, Pierce, because it's lunchtime. I can have a sandwich and some chips and enjoy this and not wake up at 3 a.m. to see a race halfway across the world. What are the chances, though, this race can be more exciting than what we witnessed last week?
Well, if you're looking for a different winner, no. But if you're looking for exciting racing, yeah, it's under the lights. It's at Jeddah. The Corniche Street Circuit is pretty wild. It's basically like a roller coaster. They had to reform this track last year because it was just too dangerous. So it tells you something about how the racing is going to play out. We will probably see a gnarly wreck and some fierce battles in the back of the pack. But, if you really want to watch some exciting onboard cameras, super fast, this is a really good circuit to watch. Now, yeah, it's going to be Verstappen winning, but there's going to be action.
Okay, so question for you here. Mad Max, the heavy favorite. We just showed everyone the odds here. Minus 800 on DK Sportsbook. He was minus 450 earlier in the week. So is this something where if you are going to bet this guy, you need to be hopping on earlier in the week?
Earlier in the decade?
Yeah.
Maybe you wanted to bet it 2 years ago.
Okay.
You can be early in the week, but it's not going to help you much.
Okay, so should we just be talking about the battle then for second place?
Yeah, but I don't think there'd be much of a battle. It's going to be Checo Perez. The Red Bulls are just absolutely on another level. And then on top of that, Checo is arguably behind Verstappen, the best street circuit racer. He has wins at Baku, Monaco. He won this Grand Prix last season. He probably should have won it in 2022. So 1 and 2 seems like those podium steps are already taken.
Yeah, Red Bull. Yeah, so we're talking Perez, second best odds too. So he did win this race last year, Pierce. How would you bet him? Maybe like a podium finish? Would you want to do a double Red Bull podium finish? Take us inside all the options are in the DK Sportsbook.
Yeah, you can look at different podiums. You can look at top 6s and top 10s. The odds aren't really that appealing. If I'm going to go to the props market, the one that I really am intrigued by is Kevin Magnussen. You can get him at, I believe, plus 275 to get a top 10. Haas really isn't the best team, but Magnussen in his 2 races here has finished inside the top 10 both times. So he seems to know his way around this circuit. He's starting 13th. The field is not as strong this week. I think he can definitely get you a top 10.
All right. Meanwhile, let's come back closer to home. Let's come back here to the States. NASCAR has 3 exciting races now into the season in Phoenix for the Shriners Children's 500 tomorrow. So you were telling me how NASCAR rolled out a new short track package here. How is this affecting your betting strategy?
Well, they did roll a much hyped package, and they tested it yesterday in practice, and it failed.
Oh,
It was a disaster. Well, I won't say it was a disaster, but nothing changed. It's more of the same. So all the hype around the package, just ignore it. We're going to basically see what we have seen in the past. Drivers that were good at short flat tracks last year, short tracks in general, the same elite cars are going to be fast. So really no shakeup. You're going to see some tire wear that might play out, and some long run cars could run well. But for the most part, it's more of the same.
okay. So for maybe some casual fans of the sport who are watching, when we talk about a new short track package, can you just explain to us quickly like what that means, what we're talking about?
Well, what they tried to do was change the diffuser and the spoiler and eliminate some of the dirty air that sprays off the cars that makes it, hard to pass in traffic. And it just didn't work. So there's just a lot of aerodynamic problems that once you get close to the car, a trailing car just cannot overtake. They just get too tight and they can't pass. And so no passing equals not really fun racing.
Oh, man. Well, that's a bummer. But you know what is fun, Pierce, is making money. And again, that's why we have you here to help people make money and NASCAR bets on DK Sportsbook. So then with the package change and that kind of being a dud, maybe we're less likely to see a surprise winner here?
We are, and let's not completely rain on the parade. There's nothing wrong with the package not necessarily working. And if anything, it makes it more predictable. And so from a betting market or a DFS market, we have a lot of data to lean on, and we can look at previous track history and trust that that's going to help us make some predictions. So you don't really want to necessarily go way down the board. Long shots are probably not going to pull through. We didn't really see anyone jump off the board in practice. So, I mean, like Christopher Bell went from not being the favorite to the favorite yesterday based on his speed. Maybe you go down to Martin Truex Jr., a guy who typically has pretty good long run speed, is kind of his calling card, although he really wasn't that fast on the long run in practice. He's been a good short track racer. Just as far as betting strategy, you really are not going to want to take in these long shots. The guys that have fast cars, that normally have fast cars, will be there at the end.
So stick closer to the top of the odds board, which is pretty tight.
Yeah, it is. But the odds aren't really, that bad, honestly. If you look at the top of the board, there are pretty good payouts.
What about when we dive into props here for Phoenix tomorrow? What are you paying attention to the most right now?
I'm going to go the safe route, and I really like the Toyotas in practice. And they didn't show a lot of speed in the intermediate track last week, but here, because the package didn't really change anything, Toyotas were good last year. Toyotas are always good. JGR Toyotas were pretty solid, but Christopher Bell in practice, his times are just lights out. His long run speed is amazing. He's never been able to break through at Phoenix in the Cup Series, but he's won here in the Xfinity Series. He's won at short flat tracks. This is one of his strengths. Last year, he wrecked out because of a tire failure in the championship. It's just been kind of a matter of time before he has his breakthrough, and just no one has the speed that he had yesterday. And I think he is going to carry the ship. And if not, you got Hamlin, you've got Truex, you got a lot of good Toyotas in the field. Even Reddick, although he had some spins in practice, you like it when the guys are pushing the limit and see what they've got. So give me Toyota plus 135.
I've got a friend who drives his Camry. He's had the same Camry for like decades, and he just swears by it. He loves that thing.
Surprisingly, like those street Camrys have almost as much horsepower as the stock cars. That's sad.
Let's go to DFS. What's your approach here at DFS? Because you've said these salaries are very forgiving. The whole board is in play, it feels like. So take us inside the DFS realm ahead of Phoenix.
There's definitely some value down on the board, but when you're constructing your lineup, you're going to get at least 2 drivers that lead a lot of laps. I think maybe 3, if not 2 that lead a lot of laps. You're going to need 2 that lead laps and a third guy that scores a bunch of fast laps. None of those drivers are going to be cheap. You're going to spend up, but we're going to get long runs. So I think 3 guys at the top are going to be expensive. Then you look down the board towards some of the value. I like Carson Hocevar. I like John Hunter Nemechek. I might even flirt around with Harrison Burton. They all look pretty good in practice. They're not going to have tremendous days, but compared to the other value picks, they should work and open up your lineup to pay for the really expensive guys that are going to lead laps.
All right, well, 5 guys will cost you at least 10 grand DFS on DraftKings. Pierce, love you, mean it. I know you're excited for Luka Doncic and the Mavericks to beat up on the Pistons tonight.
Well, he's questionable, so watch out, and I'll send you some dog picks later.
All right, thank you, my friend. Love you, mean it. So, yeah, let's get into some NBA to wrap up this show. Following the injury to Cat, we've got Anthony Edwards rising to the occasion for Minnesota. Didn't stop him from falling out of the top seed in the West last night, though. Jules is back for one more go-around. We're talking NBA odds next. All right, the NBA regular season. It's down now to the last few weeks of action before the playoffs begin. Only one team has clinched a playoff spot, so that would be your Celtics, Julian Edlow. Congratulations. Thanks for coming back to talk some NBA.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I hope the Celtics were going to make the playoffs. That would have been quite a disappointment.
Yeah, the East is basically wrapped up with the Celtics. You really can't say the same thing for the West, and some big injuries that could impact the playoff picture in the West. We saw Minnesota go down last night in overtime to the Cavs here, Jules, and Cat is out. Edwards had that huge game Thursday, but just if you really dive into the numbers, the Wolves have a lousy offensive rating without Karl Anthony Towns, and his injury, how much do you expect that to derail their best season in 20 years here?
Well, last night was a really tough spot. They were off the emotional road win in Indy. Anthony Edwards had one of the blocks of the year to win the game.
Yep.
And then he comes in questionable for that game, plays a little dinged up. They still managed to force overtime in Cleveland and then come undone and wind up losing that game. Say what you want about Minnesota's offensive rating without Towns. I think they're going to be fine because they have so many bigs. They have guys like Naz Reid that you can plug in, which if you're looking for props, Wolves don't play tonight, but since Towns went down, Naz Reid's point prop has been 11.5, 12.5. He had 13 in the first game without Towns. He went off for 34 last night against Cleveland. That prop's going to creep up in the future, but Naz Reid's getting more minutes. He's going to be a guy that really plugs in on offense for Minnesota. So Naz Reid's point props are one to keep an eye on moving forward. In terms of the Wolves overall, I don't think they're going to slip that much without Towns, honestly. I do think, like, if they drop the number one seed in the West, I think that's something that was going to happen with or without Towns. I think that it's going to be Denver or OKC. Those teams are going to hang on and get it. And that Minnesota, with or without Towns, was due for a slip.
Yeah, and that team, Minnesota, in the midst of a 6-game road trip, so 4 more to go before they head back home, Jules. Thunder beat the Heat yesterday. Thunder now back atop the Western Conference. So for them to lock up that number one seed in the West, odds plus 160 to be the top dog in the West. Denver still the favorite, minus 110 to be the top seed in the West. How much would you consider betting OKC to secure the number one seed in the Western Conference?
Yeah, it's tough. And it doesn't, I don't like looking too much at schedule because we never know who's going to be out in the NBA. We never know how teams are going to be playing. So unless there's a huge gap in terms of strength of schedule with this little time left, about a month, I don't want to factor it in too much. Denver, I know that narrative that they're the defending champs. They can win any way they want. They don't necessarily need it this year. It would mean more to OKC, but Denver's right there. They could just get it and say the West runs through us again to get back to the finals. So I think Denver's appropriately favored. I think they should get it. And if I was betting on something I had seen before with OKC and they had done this, I would feel more comfortable. This is new territory for them. And I think they're a really solid squad and I really trust SGA, but you should have done this earlier, put it that way. If you were going to with OKC, I'll probably pass on the plus 160.
Okay, Thunder will be back in action tomorrow hosting the Grizzlies. As for today, 7 games on this slate here, dude, including the Mavs at the Pistons. We just had Mavericks insider Pierce Dietrich on this program saying, hey, just keep an eye out for Luka. Questionable after he became the first player in NBA history the other night to record 35-plus point triple-doubles in 4 straight games. And his head coach, by the way, Jason Kidd, saying, you're seeing something as rare as Picasso every night. He does something. Which bets are on your card tonight from these 7 games right here? Give me one.
Well, if you were betting on Luka 35-plus point triple-doubles 4 games in a row and parlaying it, you can probably afford a Picasso now to put on your wall. Now, the Pistons is a down spot for sure, playing in Detroit. I guess if there's a spot you maybe rest him, it could be Detroit. And if that's the case, maybe you look at Kyrie props. If he does play, then you maybe look at blowout potential and you want to this could be the game you take your foot off the gas with Luka. So I would be careful with this one. The Pistons have been playing well. They're coming off a big win over the Nets. This is a tough one to gauge, but I know the sharp money was early on Detroit plus the points at a better number, maybe in anticipation of Doncic sitting or just not caring as much about playing in Detroit. I'll pass on this one, but ultimately, let's see where the injury news falls, and then we can make a final decision.
Okay, then you also have Celtics at the Suns. So Celtics dropping that game late against Denver the other night. The Suns all of a sudden kind of putting it together, I guess. They also beat the Nuggets. That was back on Tuesday. They beat the Raptors, which isn't really saying much, on Thursday here. What do you expect to go down between the Suns and the Celtics?
Yeah, it's a prove-it spot now for both teams, which we didn't think we would be saying. Yeah. Phoenix obviously does still have something to prove, but now the Celtics are coming off consecutive road losses. They completely collapse in Cleveland, and then they go toe-to-toe with the defending champs after Denver won a tight one in Boston, and Denver prevails in the tight one in Denver. So Saturday night, ABC, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both, look up to and enjoy competing against a guy like Kevin Durant. I think the Celtics are going to show up for this game. I don't see them dropping 3 in a row. They hear the noise. I'm curious if Jason Tatum sees all these Twitter videos of him, of whoever that guy is that does all the dancing of people making fun of him when he doesn't show up in the fourth quarter. I have no idea what those videos are. I don't do TikTok, but they're kind of funny. And if I'm Jason Tatum, I'm pissed off about those. So I think Tatum steps up, has a big game tonight if you want to look at his props going up against Durant. I would either lay the 5.5, or if you want to get creative, again, this is an 8:30 Eastern tip. If you don't want to necessarily lay the points, and 5.5 can be a key number in basketball. 5 is the most common margin of victory. I like moneyline parlaying different pieces with the Celtics leading up to tip. So like I said, University of Rhode Island stinks at basketball this year. Fordham moneyline piece with Celtics moneyline. That's around even money, -110. Houston, I really like to win outright today hosting Kansas. If you put Houston and Celtics moneyline together, I think that's -120, 125 range. So different things like that, and if they all come through, then you're just sitting on Celtics money line at a nice price by the time that game tips.
Okay, does that Devin Booker injury, is that impacting your decision here to back the Celtics on the money line?
No, thank you for reminding me. I meant to close with that.
Oh, wow.
If Booker doesn't play, then great. The Celtics are in a good spot without having to contain Booker, pay attention to KD more. If he does, I think he's rushing it back because he was projected to be out another 5, 6, 7 days. And generally, when you rush back from a bad ankle roll like that, there's going to be a little bit of rust, which I'm fine with.
I would originally have been pretty excited for Spurs at the Warriors because you'd have Wemby. You would also have Steph Curry there cooking, but Wemby's going to miss his second straight game. There's going to be no Curry as well. Not sure if there is even a game bet on your card from this one, but do you start to look a little more, depending on how long Steph Curry misses, maybe Warriors to not make the playoffs?
Yeah, Warriors to make the playoffs was a bet I liked at the break. I think it was +120 range. It sounds like from Woj, the ankle injury isn't too bad, and he's going to miss a game or 2 or 3. And they can survive against the Spurs, especially without Wemby at home tonight. So if Curry just misses a couple of games, I think they'll be right back on track, and they will find a way to make the playoffs. I'm not going to bet on tonight's game. It definitely loses its juice with Curry and Wembanyama both out. So we're not going to get that moment where Curry hits a big 3 over Wembanyama, and then we get that beautiful picture of fans in the crowd turned around looking at other things that aren't the game. So we'll miss out on that moment tonight. But I think Golden State wins. Spread's too big for me to back them without Curry.
Okay, anything else that you'd like to remind the people here, or any other bets that you would recommend before we end this award-winning program?
Yes, since Scotty Barnes went down for the Raptors, and Joe Delera from Action Network and I touched on Emmanuel Quickley last weekend, we hit that bet. I bet it again all week. They all hit, whether it's points, rebounds, assists, or just rebounds and assists with Emmanuel Quickley. Dude's been getting all the usage, even in bad matchups. So Emmanuel Quickley, it was 12.5 rebounds and assists last game. He dished out 18 assists alone. I don't even remember how many rebounds he had. So Emmanuel quickly, it's gone up. It's 13.5 minus 130 now for the rebounds and assists. But I'll pay the premium because he's been crushing the over on this. Keep backing Emmanuel quickly combo props as he is getting all the usage with Scotty Barnes out. He's improving his scoring and really distributing extremely well.
All right, Jules, good seeing you. We'll catch you tomorrow. Go roast some marshmallows on that great fire burning behind you. But please do it safely. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on this Saturday morning edition of The Sweat. We're back tomorrow. Joe Kelly of the Dodgers will be joining us 8 to 10 Eastern Time.